Good morning, everyone. It's Ness Hughes here. I am part of the St Andrew's Roseville Ministry team, and I'm going to be leading you this week in the daily devotionals that sit alongside the 2020 Discipleship blog, which is a resource designed to assist you in your personal and daily Bible reading. Some of you are reading the Bible cover to cover and others are hitting the highlights, but either way, I do hope that this devotion is a blessing to you and encouragement as we go through these together. Well, today is a turning point because we are beginning the New Testament. For the last 6 months, you guys have been navigating your way through the Old Testament, and hopefully, alongside God's people, you've been anticipating the fulfillment of God's promises, wondering how and when and through whom God would fulfill all of his promises. And we are going to look today at the Gospel of Luke. We're going to spend the next few days having a look at the first 3 chapters of Luke's Gospel. And for Luke, this is the turning point of history. Jesus as the Saviour of the whole world. That Jesus is the one through whom God fulfills all of his promises. That this is the time. And so we're going to have a look today at just the opening 4 verses of Luke's Gospel. I'll read those to you in a moment. But it's interesting to think about who wrote this Gospel and how it is he came to understand Jesus as the Saviour of the world, and how he came to write this down for us too. Luke, we learn from other parts of the Bible, was a companion of Paul's, and he joined him on his journeys, and during that time would have met the disciples. He would have met eyewitnesses of Jesus, people who heard what Jesus taught, people who saw what Jesus did. This gospel is written somewhere between AD 60 and around 85, and so well and truly within one lifetime of Jesus' life. And so he's speaking to the people who either really walked and talked with Jesus, or at least saw everything he did and said, or some of the things. And so I find it fascinating to imagine Luke alongside Paul meeting with Peter, and Luke asking him all sorts of questions about Jesus and the things he did and said, and recording them for us here in the Gospel of Luke. It's fascinating, isn't it, to think of that. So keep that in mind as we read through the Gospel. Luke was not a Jew, he was a Gentile, and he was an educated, possibly physician, and so he writes with a really educated style. He's got really excellent Greek, and he seems to be writing also for an educated and curious audience. We're going to read specifically who he seems to be addressing, but it's a wide audience for then and all the way through to now. So how about I read the verses for us, and we'll see what we can learn. Luke chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. And so Luke seems to be writing specifically to a person called Theophilus. This may be an individual that he had in mind, an acquaintance, or possibly someone had even commissioned him to undertake this project. It could be representative of a people. But either way, he certainly was writing knowing that this would be passed around, and so he's got a wider audience in mind, even if Theophilus is a single individual. But he really is addressing people who've heard the Christian message, and he wants to give them certainty of the things that they've heard. And I want you to notice 2 things. He talks about drawing up an account, and so I think we need to approach this knowing that this is historically sound, that Luke really endeavoured to write with accuracy about the life of Jesus. He's carefully investigated, he's taken these eyewitness accounts, he's asked questions of people who saw Jesus and heard all he said, and he's written this historical account for us. But it's also got a pastoral intent too, because he wants to convey a message to give us certainty, to give Theophilus and the audience at the time and us certainty of the things we've been taught. And so he's not just trying to preserve information for posterity's sake, although he is being historical in this task, but he really is writing to convey a message, and that is the message that Jesus is the Saviour. And so we need to approach the gospel knowing those two things, that we can rely on this gospel for historical testimony, but that it is driving toward a message. It can be frustrating for us who can imagine in this day and age, if somebody was to attempt to write a biography of someone, that it would be a really comprehensive document, that it would include every detail of their childhood and every influential person in their life and every conversation they had and everything that they did. But these Gospels were written in ancient biography style that were no less historical. They were certainly attempting to be historically accurate. Luke more so than the other, oh, not more so, but so specifically that was Luke's intent, but also with a real agenda in mind to convey a message. And that is that the life of Jesus is a historical event and that he is the Saviour of the world. You know, it's an interesting time in history that Luke's writing as the people of God are dispersing. There's tension between the Jewish people and the Romans, and all of those original towns that Jesus would have visited are being decimated and people are dispersing. And that first generation of eyewitnesses are dying. And so Luke has a real urgency to document for us all that we would need to know to have confidence that Jesus is the Saviour. And so we're going to, in the next couple of days, have a look at the birth of John the Baptist. We're going to have a look at the birth of Jesus and his baptism as he is anointed for ministry. And each of these little snippets of Luke's gospel that we read, we must remember that Luke has given for us an account of all the things that we would need to know to have certainty that Jesus is the Saviour. So join me tomorrow. We're going to be continuing on in chapter 1, and I look forward to doing that with you. See you later, everyone.